Introduction to the Mystery. The evening was calm, the city lights flickering like distant stars against the night sky. Inside a cozy yet elegant apartment, Aisha scrolled through her phone absent-mindedly, sipping on a warm cup of tea. She had always been the responsible one in her family, the dependable daughter, the caring sister, the perfect friend. But tonight, something gnawed at her, a strange feeling she couldn't shake. It started as a whisper, an offhand comment at a family gathering. A distant cousin had casually mentioned a name that sent a shiver down Aisha's spine. "I heard he's been acting differently these days," they had said. The name belonged to Hyder, a man Aisha had once known well, or so she had thought. But something about the way it was said, the lingering curiosity, the way people exchanged glances, made her feel as though she was missing a crucial piece of a puzzle. Aisha had always been close to Hyder. Their families had been intertwined for years, their childhood memories filled with playful banter and shared secrets. But in recent months, he had become distant. Conversations that once flowed effortlessly were now brief, hesitant. He was still kind, still himself, yet there was an invisible wall between them. Curiosity got the better of her. She began piecing together small, seemingly unrelated details. The way Hyder always checked his phone nervously, the sudden urgency in his schedule, the occasional disappearances that no one questioned. He had never been secretive before. What had changed? That night, unable to sleep, Aisha found herself staring at a photograph on her bedside table. It was from a trip they had taken years ago, a group of friends laughing under the golden hues of a setting sun. Hyder stood beside her, carefree and smiling. She traced the edges of the picture, a nagging thought taking root in her mind. The next day, she decided to confront him. They met at a quiet cafe, a place they had frequented often. As soon as he sat down, Aisha noticed the way his eyes darted away, the hesitation in his movements. She wasted no time. "Hyder, is there something you're not telling me?" He hesitated, his fingers tightening around his coffee cup. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, with a deep sigh, he finally spoke. "Aisha, there's something I should have told you a long time ago." The weight of his words hung between them. The air thickened with unspoken truths, and Aisha braced herself, knowing that whatever came next would change everything. A secret was about to be revealed, one that no one had known about, and by the time they did, it would already be too late. A hidden love story. Aisha had always believed in love, the kind that unfolds gradually, built on trust and quiet moments rather than grand gestures. But she never imagined she would fall for someone in a way that required secrecy, that her love story would be one she couldn't share. It began subtly, almost imperceptibly, like the first raindrops before a storm. Hyder had always been in her life, a childhood friend, a confidant, but something changed over time. Their conversations grew deeper, the silences between them more meaningful. Every stolen glance, every shared joke, every accidental touch built into something neither of them could ignore. It wasn't a planned love. If anything, it was inconvenient. Hyder belonged to a world where choices were dictated by family expectations, where love was not enough to justify rebellion. Aisha knew her own family would disapprove, not because Hyder wasn't a good man, but because he wasn't the right man in their eyes. Their families had envisioned different futures for them, ones that did not include each other, and yet love refused to be tamed. One evening, under the golden glow of streetlights, Hyder confessed what Aisha had long suspected, but never dared to acknowledge. "I can't imagine a life without you," he had said, his voice low, uncertain, yet firm. She felt the same, and so, they made a decision that would change everything. They would get married in secret. With only a close friend as a witness, they exchanged vows in a quiet ceremony at a small registrar's office. There were no grand celebrations, no family blessings, no traditional festivities, just the two of them, promising each other forever in hushed voices, their hands tightly clasped as if holding on to the only certainty they had. For a while, they lived in stolen moments, a world within a world. They met in hidden corners, sent messages late at night, and found joy in the smallest things. A quick lunch together, a whispered "I love you" before parting ways. It was a love defined by secrecy, but not by regret. Yet, even as they built their quiet happiness, Aisha couldn't shake the feeling that love, no matter how strong, could not stay hidden forever. The truth had a way of surfacing, and when it did, the consequences would be irreversible. Reasons for secrecy. Aisha and Haider never wanted to hide their love. In a perfect world, they would have celebrated their marriage openly, surrounded by family and friends. But reality was far from perfect. Their decision to keep their marriage a secret wasn't driven by choice, but by necessity. The first and most obvious reason was family disapproval. Aisha came from a traditional household where marriages were arranged, not chosen. Her parents had already hinted at their expectations. Someone from a similar background, approved by the elders, with a match that strengthened family ties. Haider, despite being an honorable man, did not fit that mold. His family, too, had their own plans for him, a future that did not include Aisha. If their families found out, they wouldn't just face disappointment, they would face outright rejection. Then, there was societal backlash. Their community was tightly knit, where news traveled faster than the wind. A marriage without family approval was not just frowned upon, it was a scandal. Aisha knew that if their secret was exposed too soon, the whispers would turn into judgments, and those judgments could have consequences beyond their control. Would Haider's family disown him? Would Aisha be forced into a marriage of her family's choosing to erase the shame? These were questions that kept her awake at night. Beyond the external pressures, there were also personal circumstances. Both were still building their futures, careers, stability, and independence. A sudden revelation of their marriage could mean losing the support they still depended on. Haider, though deeply in love, feared what his family's anger could mean for his career and financial security. Aisha, on the other hand, knew her parents had the power to cut her off completely. So, they lived in secrecy, meeting in hidden places, speaking in hushed tones, keeping their love wrapped in shadows. But they both knew one thing for certain: secrets could only last so long. And when the truth finally surfaced, there would be no turning back. Maintaining the facade. Living a double life was never easy, but for Aisha and Haider, it was their only option. In the eyes of the world, they were just old friends, nothing more. Their families, their colleagues, even their closest friends had no idea that they were, in fact, husband and wife. During the day, Aisha went about her usual routine, attending family gatherings, fulfilling work commitments, and playing the role of the obedient daughter. Haider did the same, carrying on with his responsibilities while pretending to be just another bachelor. But beneath the surface, their hearts ached for each other. They found ways to steal moments together. Aisha would run errands just to meet Haider for a brief coffee. Haider would make excuses to be near her neighborhood, pretending it was a coincidence. Late at night, when the world was asleep, they whispered over the phone, longing for a life where they wouldn't have to hide. The hardest part was keeping up appearances. At family events, Aisha had to endure conversations about potential suitors, nodding politely as relatives pushed her toward a marriage they didn't know had already happened. Haider, on the other hand, had to dodge questions about when he planned to settle down, all while standing mere feet away from the woman he had already vowed to spend his life with. Despite their love, the weight of secrecy was exhausting. There were close calls, moments when Aisha almost slipped up, when Haider's expressions betrayed too much emotion, when a lingering glance lasted too long. Each time they recovered quickly, masking their emotions before anyone could suspect the truth. But they both knew this facade couldn't last forever. Secrets had a way of unraveling, and sooner or later, their hidden love story would come to light. The only question was, what would happen when it did? Clues and suspicion. At first, no one noticed. Aisha and Haider had been careful, making sure their lives remained as normal as ever. But secrets, no matter how well kept, always leave traces. It started with the smallest things: Aisha's sudden disappearances for errands that took too long, Hyder's unexplained absences at family gatherings. Aisha's mother, who noticed everything, began asking questions. "You seem distracted these days," she commented one evening. "Is something on your mind?" Aisha forced a smile and shook her head, but her mother's sharp eyes lingered on her longer than usual. Then there were the phone calls. Late at night, when the house was quiet, Aisha would whisper to Hyder, their voices filled with longing. One night, her brother walked past her room and heard murmurs through the door. The next morning, he casually asked, "Who were you talking to so late?" Aisha's heart pounded. "Just a friend," she lied, hoping he wouldn't question her further. But he did. "A friend or someone else?" he teased, watching her reaction carefully. She laughed it off, but the seed of suspicion had been planted. Hyder wasn't immune to scrutiny either. His best friend, Samir, was the first to notice changes in him. "You're acting different these days," he remarked over lunch. "Distracted, secretive. You disappear without explanation." Hyder brushed it off, but Samir wasn't convinced. One evening, while they were out with friends, Hyder received a text. He read it quickly and smiled, too quickly, too instinctively. Samir caught the look. "Who was that?" he asked, his tone light but probing. "No one important," Hyder replied, pocketing his phone. But Samir wasn't fooled. The biggest clue came when Aisha's cousin found a delicate gold ring in her purse, one she had never seen her wear before. "This is beautiful," she said, holding it up. "Where did you get it?" Aisha hesitated for a second too long. "Oh, it's just something I bought." But her cousin noticed the way she gently took it back, as if it meant more than she was willing to admit. Slowly, the whispers began. Family members started watching more closely. Friends exchanged knowing glances. The carefully maintained facade was beginning to crack. The truth was slipping through the cracks of their secrecy. It was only a matter of time before someone put all the pieces together, and when that happened, there would be no more hiding. The shocking revelation secrets have a way of revealing themselves at the worst possible moments. Aisha and Hyder had been careful, always covering their tracks, always making sure that no one could piece together the truth. But all it took was one mistake, one moment of bad timing, for everything to fall apart. It happened on a seemingly ordinary evening. Aisha's family had gathered at her uncle's house for a dinner party. The room buzzed with conversation, laughter, and the clinking of plates. Aisha was in the middle of a conversation with her cousin when her phone vibrated on the table. She glanced at the screen. It was a message from Hyder. "I miss you. Can't wait to see you tonight, Mary John." Aisha's heart stopped. Her cousin, sitting beside her, caught a glimpse of the message before she could lock her phone. "Mary John?" her cousin repeated, raising an eyebrow. "Who's texting you like that?" Aisha fumbled for words, her mind racing for an excuse, but before she could respond, her cousin snatched the phone playfully. "Let's see who this mystery man is," she teased, unlocking the screen. The room fell into silence as she read the name, Hyder. Aisha's mother, noticing the sudden hush, turned toward them. "What's going on?" she asked. Her cousin looked up, eyes wide. "Aisha, why is Hyder sending you messages like this?" The words sent a ripple of shock through the room. Hyder's name had always been familiar to the family, but never in this context. Aisha's father, who had been laughing with relatives just moments ago, set down his cup of tea with a sharp clink. "Hyder?" he repeated, his voice heavy with suspicion. "What does he mean, Mary John?" Aisha felt the walls closing in. She opened her mouth to speak, to deny, to deflect, but before she could, the doorbell rang. Everyone turned toward the entrance. Her uncle walked over and opened the door, and there, standing in the doorway, was Hyder. He looked just as stunned as Aisha felt. He hadn't expected to walk into a family gathering. He had just come to drop off something for Aisha. But now, standing in front of her entire family, he knew there was no going back. A long silence stretched between them. Then Aisha's father spoke, his voice dangerously calm. "What is going on here?" Aisha and Hyder exchanged a look, both knowing that the moment they had feared had arrived. The secret was out. The truth had been exposed. And now, There was no way to escape the storm that was about to follow. The aftermath of a major crisis or chaotic event often leaves a trail of devastation that impacts not just the individuals directly involved, but also their families, friends, and broader society. The reactions that follow can range from shock and anger to confusion, each deeply rooted in the emotional turmoil that follows such events. Whether the crisis is personal, societal, or a combination of both, it has a far-reaching impact, leaving many struggling to process the chaos. At the heart of these reactions is shock. When something unexpected or devastating happens, people often feel an initial numbness. This is especially true in families or communities that experience the fallout of an event they couldn't have anticipated. The sudden loss of a loved one, a major scandal, or a public catastrophe can shatter the sense of safety and normalcy people once took for granted. For families and close-knit communities, the shock can manifest in disbelief, with loved ones grappling to understand how something so traumatic could have occurred. The emotional distance that shock creates in the immediate aftermath often makes it difficult to process grief or sadness, creating a barrier to healing. Following shock, anger is another prevalent emotion. It can surface in response to a perceived injustice, a betrayal, or the realization that a situation could have been avoided. For instance, in cases where individuals are wronged, whether through a criminal act, a scandal, or an avoidable accident, the anger felt by families and friends often turns into a call for accountability or justice. Anger becomes a driving force that seeks retribution, answers, or change. This emotion can divide families or communities, especially if different people have differing views on where blame should lie. Anger also extends to society at large, especially when larger systemic issues are at play. Individuals may start questioning the fairness of the world around them and the mechanisms that allowed the chaotic event to occur in the first place. However, confusion often accompanies these strong emotions. The reasons behind a crisis are not always clear, and people find themselves searching for answers. This uncertainty creates a mental fog, making it difficult for anyone to move forward in a productive way. In personal crises, family members might struggle to understand why a particular event occurred, what led to it, and how they can deal with the consequences. In larger societal events, the confusion may be amplified, with a lack of clear information leading to misinformation, speculation, and a breakdown of trust in institutions. For society at large, the consequences of such emotional turmoil are far-reaching. Public discourse can be altered as a result of societal upheavals, with widespread discussions that reflect anger, confusion, and a desperate search for meaning. These reactions can also lead to polarization, where different groups adopt opposing viewpoints, sometimes exacerbating divisions. In extreme cases, societal reactions to chaos can result in protests, political movements, or collective action aimed at bringing about change. However, as individuals and communities process their emotions, the long-term impact can be a mix of healing and permanent shifts in social structures and relationships. The emotional aftermath of chaos, shock, anger, and confusion often leads to long-lasting consequences for individuals and society. In the personal realm, family and friends may find their bonds tested or strengthened, depending on how they navigate these emotions. In the broader social context, a society grapples with the need for resolution, reform, or simply understanding as it continues to live with the consequences of the event that triggered the chaos. Ultimately, emotional turmoil, though painful, is often a necessary part of recovery as people and communities attempt to rebuild and redefine themselves in the wake of disaster. In a world where love is meant to transcend all boundaries, some couples find themselves locked in a battle for acceptance. Their love, pure and genuine, becomes the focal point of intense opposition, whether from family, society, or even legal systems. The struggle is not just about holding on to one another, but also about validating the very existence of their relationship in a world that does not always understand or support their bond. At the core of this battle lies the fight for justification. These couples often find themselves defending their love, explaining it to people who are unwilling or unable to see beyond their preconceived notions. The disapproval they face can range from subtle judgment to overt hostility. Some may encounter skepticism from family members, particularly if their relationship defies cultural, religious, or societal norms. Parents may disown their children, siblings may become estranged, and friends may turn their backs, all because of a love they cannot accept. The emotional weight of these reactions is overwhelming, forcing the couple to constantly fight not just for each other, but also for the legitimacy of their bond. But the opposition is not limited to personal relationships. It often extends to societal and legal barriers. In many parts of the world, laws still exist that deny people the right to love freely, from restrictive marriage laws to discriminatory policies that make it harder for certain couples to live openly. The couple may face legal obstacles when it comes to healthcare, inheritance, adoption, or even simple recognition of their relationship in the eyes of the law. The pain of these limitations often forces them to choose between living quietly in the shadows or fighting in public to challenge the system that marginalizes them. The emotional toll of this struggle is significant. Heartbreak often comes not only from the external pressures, but also from the feeling of rejection and isolation. When people closest to them fail to support their love, the couple faces emotional betrayal that cuts deeply. They are left to navigate their lives in a world that makes them feel like outsiders, even when their love is as real and sincere as any other. The constant strain can lead to moments of doubt, where they question if their fight is worth it or if they are asking too much of each other. These moments of vulnerability, however, are often tempered by the reaffirmation of their commitment. They lean on each other for strength, realizing that their love is a force worth protecting. For some, the battle for acceptance is not just an emotional fight, but also a political and social one. The couple may find themselves at the forefront of a larger movement, advocating for change in the legal system or working to shift societal attitudes. They may become symbols of resistance, but this comes with its own set of challenges. The public scrutiny, the media attention, and the potential backlash from opponents can add layers of complexity to their already difficult journey. Their fight becomes a beacon for others in similar situations, but it also opens them up to criticism, often from those who do not understand or refuse to acknowledge their love. Ultimately, the struggle for acceptance is a story of resilience. The couple may face heartbreak, rejection, and legal complications, but their love, tested by adversity, has the power to endure. They may not always win the approval of everyone around them, but they remain steadfast in their belief that their love is valid. Over time, their journey may inspire others to challenge the status quo, leading to wider societal changes that create space for more love to flourish freely. And in the end, the greatest victory is not in overcoming opposition, but in finding peace and acceptance within themselves and with each other. The ultimate decision facing a couple deeply in love is often shaped by the struggle for family acceptance and the potential consequences it brings. Whether they can stay together or whether they will be torn apart by external pressures depends not only on their resolve, but also on the willingness of their families to embrace their relationship. For many couples, the decision to marry is more than just about love. It's about seeking validation and approval from those they cherish most. Family plays a central role in shaping individual identity and societal acceptance. When a couple faces opposition from their families, whether it's due to cultural differences, religious beliefs, or simply personal biases, the pressure to seek approval becomes overwhelming. The deeper the family's disapproval, the more the couple has to contend with feelings of guilt, uncertainty, and self-doubt. Should they choose to marry despite the resistance, or will they bow to the familial expectations and walk away from their love? This moment of reckoning forces the couple to reflect on their priorities and what they truly value. The family's decision to accept or reject the marriage becomes a defining moment. Some families, after a period of anger or resistance, may come around and accept the union, realizing that their child's happiness and well-being are more important than their own preconceived notions. This acceptance, while often hard-earned, allows the couple to move forward in peace, knowing that they are supported by those who once opposed them. However, in other cases, the family may remain firm in their opposition, creating an insurmountable barrier between the couple and their loved ones. In this scenario, the couple is faced with a painful choice: stay committed to each other despite the familial fallout, or walk away from their relationship to avoid causing further rifts. The emotional toll of these decisions cannot be understated. The fear of losing family ties often makes the couple question if their love is worth the isolation or pain of a potential family divide. The weight of disapproval, particularly from parents, can be crushing. For some, the pain of not having their family present at one of the most important moments of their life, their marriage, can seem like an insurmountable loss. Yet, some couples find strength in their unity, determined to face the world together, even if it means being apart from those who don't accept their love. The couple also faces the possibility of external social pressures, which can complicate the family dynamic even further. If the couple is in a society where their relationship is already frowned upon, the disapproval from family becomes amplified by the wider societal context. This could involve legal restrictions, limited rights, or even social stigma. The couple might find themselves fighting not just for familial approval, but for the right to be recognized as a legitimate partnership, facing hostility and judgment from the broader community. This external pressure could become a breaking point, forcing them to choose between standing firm in their commitment or conceding to the greater forces that threaten to tear them apart. However, there is also a possibility of growth and transformation. Some couples, despite immense pressure, decide to marry regardless of the opposition, and in doing so, they challenge the norms that seek to restrict their love. By choosing each other over external expectations, they set a precedent for change, not just for themselves, but for others in similar situations. Over time, the family might come to realize that the relationship has endured, and that the couple's love is just as valid as any other. In the long run, the couple's decision to persevere may lead to healing, and even reconciliation with estranged family members. Ultimately, the question remains, will the family accept the marriage? Will the couple stay together or be forced apart? The answer is not always clear. The couple's fate hinges on the strength of their bond, the flexibility of family dynamics, and the larger societal context in which they live. The decision will be a painful, yet transformative one, requiring immense courage to face the consequences, whether they lead to separation or to a unified path forward. Whatever the outcome, it is a testament to the resilience of love and the complex ways in which families and individuals navigate the balance between love and acceptance. The aftermath of the couple's battle for acceptance is a moment of deep reflection and emotional reckoning. As the dust settles, the resolution takes shape, and the future of the couple and their relationship with family and society is determined. The story concludes with one of three possible outcomes: reconciliation, tragedy, or a bittersweet compromise. Each path reflects the complexities of love, family, and the difficult choices the couple had to make. In the case of reconciliation, the couple's love proves to be strong enough to heal the wounds caused by familial opposition. Over time, the family begins to see that the couple's commitment to each other is not a rebellion or an act of defiance, but a genuine and enduring love. The emotional distance that once seemed insurmountable gradually lessens as the family members, particularly parents, begin to accept the union. Perhaps a key turning point occurs when the couple faces a life event, such as the birth of a child or a significant milestone, that forces the family to reevaluate their stance. With this new perspective, they finally come to accept the marriage, opening the door to renewed bonds and a shared future. The couple, once torn apart by rejection, now finds strength in the unity of both their love and their family's acceptance. In contrast, tragedy looms as a possible conclusion when the family's opposition is unyielding. Despite their best efforts to prove their love's worth, the couple is ultimately torn apart by external forces beyond their control. Whether it is the pain of continued familial rejection or the societal pressures that remain insurmountable, the couple's relationship may buckle under the strain. One partner may decide that the emotional cost of holding on is too great, or the family's refusal to accept the union may drive an insurmountable wedge between them. The heartache of this separation leaves an indelible mark on both individuals as they are forced to part ways, carrying the pain of lost love and shattered dreams. In this tragedy, no reconciliation is achieved. and the couple is left to face the harsh reality of love that could not overcome the barriers imposed by family and society. The most common and perhaps most poignant resolution is a bittersweet compromise. In this outcome, the couple remains together, but not without sacrifices. The family may never fully accept the relationship, and the couple is forced to navigate a complicated balance between loyalty to each other and the desire for familial approval. Perhaps one partner chooses to stay connected to their family, maintaining a semblance of a relationship with them, while the other is distanced, unable to let go of the love that has been so deeply rejected. The couple may decide to live apart from their families, building their own life together, but always with the lingering ache of unhealed wounds. They might choose to create their own family, one that is free from judgment, but the absence of their loved ones at key moments, like holidays, weddings, or the birth of a child, leaves a sense of emptiness. This compromise does not signify defeat, but rather an acknowledgement of the complex reality in which they live. It speaks to the resilience of their love, even if it means living in the shadows of a world that doesn't fully understand or accept them. Over time, the couple may find peace in their choice to stay together, learning to embrace a life that is their own, shaped by both the sacrifices and the small victories they have experienced. No matter which resolution emerges, reconciliation, tragedy, or compromise, the journey taken by the couple highlights the profound struggle for love and acceptance in the face of opposition. It is a story of hope and heartache, of strength and vulnerability, and of the ever-present tension between personal desires and societal expectations. The outcome may be different for each couple, but the universal truth remains. Love is never an easy path, and the aftermath of such battles often leaves a lasting imprint, shaping not only the future of the relationship, but the very essence of the individuals involved.